Mhm.
Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2024 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the head programmer, and Nina Strike, founder and festival director, in conversation with Peter Hegedus regarding the film project Can You Hear Me and his 360 immersive project, Sorella's Story. You can find out all the information about all of the upcoming events at the Global Peace Film Festival by going to our website, peacefilmfest.org. Our in-person programming begins September 17th and ends on the 22nd. Our virtual programming begins September 23rd and ends on the 29th. And now let's join Peter in conversation about this fascinating project and film. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. Nice to see you both. It's been a
Good
while.
to, Great to see you, Peter, and it's great to have you back with us in the festival. We've had many of your films, including the first one was in our very first festival. So, to start off with, please tell us about Can You Hear Me and the 360 immersive film Sorella's Story.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very excited to be part of this festival again, and to be working with you again. So I have to take you back to 2018, when I was finishing research on another documentary, which was also to do with, well, partially about the Holocaust. And as I was, I guess, browsing the internet for reference photographs, I came across one particular archival photo from Latvia, and it depicted a young girl with her family, half undressed, standing in front of, I guess, a camera and being photographed just before their execution. And there was a photograph from 1941. And the photo, I was just very much taken by the photograph. I felt like this photo was just, I guess, on the net. Um, Maybe people knew about it, maybe people didn't, but those lives will be forgotten forever. And I had felt this sudden urge to tell their story. And But what was, I guess, unique about that experience for me is that um, many years, 3 years before that, before I had that epiphany to make that film about the photograph, I had an experience, an immersive film experience, which means that you have a headset that you place on your head, and you find yourself, I guess, in the middle of a story that you watch in 360 on a headset, and they're called the virtual reality headsets. Many around at the moment, more and more coming out. And essentially, I saw a film 3 years before I saw this photograph where I was in a situation, and even though I wasn't. And so when I saw the photograph 3 years later, I immediately responded to it, not just saying that I want to make a film about this photograph, but that I wanted to tell their story in an immersive space. And so that is exactly what I started developing. And at that stage, there was no discussion about a documentary. It was really just that photograph and the idea of turning that into an immersive film, and to tell the story of those people in the photograph, and the story of that little girl who I later found out was Sorella Epstein, a 10-year-old girl who was killed by Nazis and their Latvian collaborators in 1941. And so I wanted to tell her story. And so I ended up, I guess, writing a fictional film in which you, as an audience, follow Sorella and her family, from being put on the truck all the way down to the place where they were killed, and they were killed on a Latvian beach in 1941. So I was very determined to tell that story, and I used immersive technology to do that. Hmm. And I mean, the documentary was something that came out of the process of preparing for the immersive film, because we just felt that at one stage we thought, okay, let's just pick up a camera and start doing interviews with people who part of the story of making this immersive film. I traveled to Latvia to meet people who may have known Sorella. It was very difficult to get any information, but the people that I met were very helpful. And they did talk about a very interesting, I guess, climate in Latvia back in 2018, is that talking about, I guess, the Holocaust and talking about what happened and what the Latvians actually did to their own people, their own Latvian Jewish people, was something that people didn't want to talk about. And so filming, doing interviews became, what's the word, a little bit more important, a little bit more timely. And then what I found myself doing is that whilst I was making the immersive film, we had a crew that was also capturing the making of Sorella's story. And so that is how these two projects began. Again, Sorella's story is a 15-minute immersive experience, and which tells the story of Sorella and her family on their last journey to the beaches of Latvia. And the documentary chronicles the making of Sorella's story, and I guess the personal journey that I took to make it.
And Peter, that's a perfect segue to my question is would you mind unpacking a bit the personal element of Can You Hear Me? Because it's a fascinating. The two films work in a very complementary way. In terms of the ripples of this event still moving out and affecting people's lives today.
Mm-hmm. Look, so the documentary was I mean, in some ways, I was looking for the motivation behind why do I want to tell this documentary, make this documentary. I'm already making an immersive film, which is hard enough to make, given there was new technology and it was a fictional film, so it was very difficult to pull off. And so the documentary on top of that was really, I realized it came from a very personal angle, which is that I mean, my grandmother was in the Holocaust, and so I think I was, I've always been very, very passionate about I guess, the Holocaust and to tell the story in any way I can, from different perspectives, and certainly this was an opportunity to do so, and yes, so I took that opportunity. Yeah.
So Peter, can you tell us, as a filmmaker, you approach a project with as open a mind as possible, but were there any things that surprised you about this particular project that you learned from the course of doing it?
Yeah. Well, I was very surprised that the Holocaust is still so fresh and such a taboo in Latvia, to be honest. I was very surprised about that. And I was also somewhat surprised that, perhaps naively, that Latvians, they don't like talking about the fact that their own people were involved in, I guess, murdering the Jewish people in Latvia. And of course, it's got a very interesting historical complexity around it, and I think it's got to do with the Russians a lot, because in the eyes of many Latvians, the Russians did a lot more worse things than did the Nazis, because the Nazis essentially just exterminated the Jewish people, whereas the Russians would have affected a larger part of the Latvian population. So that was one big surprise for me. And I guess the other thing that was a personal surprise is how deeply my grandmother's story continues to play inside me. That was a big surprise for me. And it's something that was a pleasant surprise, because obviously I love her very much, and loved her very much and love her very much. And I think her story should, I'm very happy that I was able to, I guess, integrate her story into this film. So, yeah.
Well, Peter, your love for your grandmother definitely comes through in Can You Hear Me? So I think people are really going to be are really going to take that away. So congratulations on successfully conveying what can sometimes be a very delicate emotion. So
Yes.
well done.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And
And in terms of, you talked about the ongoing influence of this issue, and it reminds me of the Global Peace Mission, which we are always trying to find a way, to bring these stories, hopefully also to bring with these particular stories models of peace and things that people can do in their daily lives, And I know these kinds of educational efforts are also very important to your work. So if you wouldn't mind speaking about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get the core of my work is this idea that I think if people understood each other a little bit better, developed empathy towards one another, it would be more difficult to perhaps start wars. And so I think that is something that's really important to me. And I think with this film, certainly I wanted I wanted the younger generations to understand what happened during the Holocaust and understand what happens when I guess what happens when prejudice is not confronted and how prejudice can develop so easily into something horrible. And we saw that. And I think, given all the genocides that have continued to happen, unfortunately, after the Holocaust and even before, it's just reminding ourselves that we just need to be just learn to be aware of what other people are going through and understand where all of us are coming from. And I think life is complex. And the moment we try to, I guess, reduce complex situations, complex people into just black and white scenarios, I think that's when the danger begins.
That's such
That's
an
well said.
important, yes, well said. And that is such an important point. And again, it's why we are so glad to be able to share your work with our audiences and have been able to do so over the years. So finally, what can people who see this interview, what can they do to support this film and your work in general? And also let us know what's next for you.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of what people can do is they can watch the film and tell their friends and family about it. Obviously, they can go to my website and they can find out more information about the films. And of course, we can organize screenings if there's a request. We've done that in the past. We are one thing that we're doing and we're spending a lot of time and energy on is we're working with schools in Australia where we take the immersive film and show it to the children. And there's a discussion that follows right after the screening. And we've been doing this and it's been going amazingly. We received some funding from a philanthropist that now has enabled us to purchase 20 of these headsets. And so, yes, we are now traveling around. So we'd love to do the same thing in the US if we can. And certainly the documentary, obviously, we'd love it to go on television at some point. But yeah, that's where we're at the moment. In terms of my new projects, I'm developing a immersive film about climate change, which I'm very excited about, and also developing a documentary about the forgotten Australians, and those are the people in Australia who, as children, were taken away from their parents for reasons because their parents couldn't look after them, and they were placed in institutions and they were severely abused. And so the story is about three of these forgotten Australians who now in their 60s, but of course, whatever happened to them, the trauma has been passed down to generations. And so the documentary follows these three families who are coping and struggling with the trauma of institutionalization. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Peter. We will, while that's a very traumatic subject, we're definitely going to be staying in touch with you to see how that project comes to fruition, because it is an important dark chapter for many countries, actually, not just Australia. We're dealing with some of that here in North America with regard to Native American children who had been taken from their families as well.
Yeah.
It's a long, sad aspect of our shared histories, and it's important to know about it so that we can learn and do better next time.
Yeah. Okay. Well said.
So thank you, Peter. Thank you for your film.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, everyone who's listened to this Glow. We've been speaking with director Peter Hegedus, and the film is Can You Hear Me? Along with the 360 immersive project Sorella's Story. If you want to learn more about his projects or find out how you can support their work, please go to peterhegedus.com. And that website is here on our ending title card. And also, if you would like to find out where and when these films and this 360 experience are scheduled during the upcoming Global Peace Film Festival, please go to our website, peacefilmfest.org. Our in-person programming begins September 17th and runs through the 22nd. Our virtual programming begins the 23rd and runs through the 29th. We are really excited to be presenting this particular project in partnership with the Holocaust Center in Florida. So thank you, and we'll see you at the next Glow.